Think that we are now live. So welcome. We'll just take a moment as folks tune in, as folks refresh the page, right, on the Move the Crowd website, where you may be watching the live cast that's embedded on the Move the Crowd website. So we'll just take a moment here. I'll take a deep breath together. And as our folks are tuning in to the November tip of the month with Rha Goddess and very special guest, Barbara Stanny, leading authority in women and money. And our theme this month is do good. Before we dig in and before I pass it over to Rha Goddess, CEO and founder of Move the Crowd, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Move the Crowd if you're not familiar, just to give you a little context here for what we do and why we do it. So Move the Crowd provides rigorous entrepreneurial training for next generation movers and shakers. So whether you're an established professional or dreaming of your next move, we help you harness your values, creativity, and passion to change the world and to get paid doing it, right? Raise your hand. Feel that. So our unique methodology really works from the inside out with both mindset and skill set to help you achieve your own unique flavor of success. And how do we do that? We get at this inside out transformation, this personal and collective transformation with our totally customized 12-month True Paid Good Academy. And fantastic live workshops, free tools, expert tips, inspiring community of real people, future friends and mentors. So we believe that your power really lies in your uniqueness and that radical authenticity is the only road to success. And that training yourself is just as important as trusting yourself. And that we all have the power and really deserve to stay true, to get paid and do good. And so Move the Crowd was founded in 2010 by entrepreneurial soul coach Rha Goddess. And she really combines there's a lot I could say about Rha Goddess, but she really combines her hard-earned business savvy with more than 30 years of social change leadership to create a conscious entrepreneurial movement, right? This is not about just a company, right? This is company as a movement. But this movement being dedicated to reimagining work and radically transforming the culture of capitalism to one that is accessible, equitable, sustainable, and prosperous for us all. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Rha Goddess to take us into the next hour together around Do Good and with Barbara Stanny.
Thank you so much, Dana. I so appreciate you in all of the ways that you hold space. And you all, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am for what is in store for us and what's ahead of us this evening, because I have my dear sister, beloved friend and mentor, Barbara Stanny, in the house, and truly well-anointed Move the Crowd guru in the house. And wow, we're going to go there tonight, you all. So I know that, hopefully you got your water, you got your tea, you got your notebook, your journal, you've buckled your seatbelts, because we are really going to go into the belly of it. And, I was talking with Barbara before we came live, and she and I were in agreement in that this is such an auspicious time to be in this conversation of do good. And, we're going to really peel back the veneer, right? We're going to get below the branding and the sort of do good greenwashing and, all of the sort of Barbara's smiling because she knows what we're talking about, all the sort of the faddishness around this conversation. And we really are going to go to the heart, which is, the question inside of this opportunity of do good is really, why are you here? Why are you here? And what is the difference that you're being called to make? And how do you say yes wholeheartedly to what is calling you, right? And how do you do it in a way that is healthy for you and sustainable for you, and healthy for others and sustainable for others, and healthy for the planet and sustainable for the planet, right? Because we need it. So I want to open us with one of my favorite quotes from Martha Graham, and it goes like this. There is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and will be lost. Now, I remember reading this quote as a young scrub, up-and-coming artist. And, you know, as artists do, we often kind of lament about the fact that we are nobody, or we're not good enough, or who do we think we are. And artists in the house, raise your hand if you hear me, right? Creators in the house, right? We all have a piece of this conversation about not being fill-in-the-blank enough. And I remember reading this Martha Graham quote, and I remember saying to myself that I no longer had the luxury of carrying that conversation anymore. And I've raised it because I want to put you all on notice tonight that there may be some conversations that you no longer can afford to carry, right? Given the work that we're here to do. We're all here to do work, y'all. There's a contribution that each of us is here to make. And given that that is the case, you may discover in our conversation today that there are some conversations you may not be able to afford carrying anymore, right? In other words, the jig may be up. There's some habits you may need to let go of. Hello. There's some community you may need to refresh, right? And it's all in service of your larger commitment, which is really about to show up in the highest contribution of what it is that you're here to do on the planet. So that's where we're going to go tonight, and that's where we're going to be this month within the context of Do Good. It's really all about what we're here in service of, which, you know, we know is love. We know is love, but we get scared, right, Barbara? We get scared, and so because we get scared, we don't always show up in service of, or in honor of, or in celebration of what we're here to do. But our hope is tonight that we can help break that open a little bit. And also to understand how your money plays a role in what it is that you're here to do in the world. So, you know, if you've read, which I'm hoping you have, right, because you're here and you're tuning in, you've read all of the wonderful e-blasts and all of the ways that we brag about the amazingness of who Barbara is, multiple New York Times bestselling author, media, world-renowned expert on women and money, like self-made goddess of transformation. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. And my joke, and Barbara knows I say this all the time, but really who she is she's a healer and she's a truth teller. And her love for us is so great that she is willing to tell the truth no matter what. And so Barbara has a new book out, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later, called Sacred Success. Woohoo! If there's anyone in the house who's done the sacred success work like me, like I had the privilege to do, woo-hoo, just big up to all my sacred success sisters that may be out there. But we're going to talk about that book. We're going to talk about the essence of that book as well. And so I want to delve into it. We're going to leave a lot of room for questions because we know we have tons of questions tonight, as there are upwards of 70 plus of you in the conversation tonight. But I want to start with some questions specifically for Barbara in this context of Do Good, right? So, you know, we're hearing all this stuff about what we should be doing and where the planet is going, and, you know, and at the same time, we're seeing a time in our history where there is so much upheaval, right? And there is so much disconnect between this conversation of the haves and the have-nots, and there's this, I'm going to say there's a hesitancy, I feel, in the conversation to really take people into a deeper exploration of what it means to do good. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, Barbara, is to define, what does it mean, like from your perspective, what does it mean to do good in the world? What does it mean?
To me, to do good is to be powerful. And because when you said, because my definition of a powerful person is also my definition of doing good. And that is, a powerful person is someone who knows who she is, who knows what she wants, who understands what she's here to contribute, and expresses that in the world unapologetically.
Say that again, Barbara. Knows who she is.
Knows who she is, which is a never-ending process. Who knows who she is, who knows what she wants, who knows what she's here to contribute, and expresses that in the world unapologetically.
And so, people struggle, because I love what you said, that this, knows who she is, right? Or knows who he is, right? Because we have our beloved men and women in this conversation, right? Knows who he or she is, right? And what it is that they're here to do. Those are the big questions, right? So how do people begin to get clear about who they are? This is something we talk about and teach all the time. How do people begin to get clear about the truth of who they are?
It's a never-ending process. And that's the fun of life. But I think, and Dana expressed it when she described true paid good so beautifully. And when she said, it is about authenticness, being authentic. It is about trust. And I think the most powerful thing we can do as individuals on this planet at this time is to learn to trust ourselves, to become intimate with ourselves, to take time for ourselves to do that. We tend to be rushing around so much, and we're so addicted to the busyness that we become disconnected from ourselves and that something greater, whatever that is for you.
And in that connection, because I, wholeheartedly, right, concur, in that connection, how do folks begin to listen for what it is that they're here to do?
So really, we have two voices, basically, that are always inside of us. And one is the voice of love, and one is the voice of fear. And the voice of fear is our ego, and the voice of love is our soul. And to be able to understand the difference between the two makes all the difference in the choices we make, depending on which voice we listen to. And the voice of the ego is not bad, but the ego's job is to protect us. And it's learned its job when we were little bitty tykes. It learned how we can survive, because as a little kid, to survive means getting attention, approval, and love. And so we learned how to do that. Our soul doesn't worry about protecting us because it knows we're safe. Our soul's job is to make sure we soar. And it's really important to know that what helped you survive and kept you safe as a child will suffocate you as an adult. So when I learned very early that nice girls are seen and not heard, who do you think you are? All those voices from my family that kept me safe really screwed up with me later.
And And this, you know, this ability to discern, Barbara, because I love what you're saying, right? This voice of fear and this voice of love. And we talk a lot about this as well in our work. And it's so interesting to me because we listen to entrepreneurs all of the time, right, who come through our work. And, you know, sometimes I was saying to, you know, and I've said this before in the context of our work, you know, it's almost like they're on to the marketing game. It's the website, it's the million followers, you know, and that's what they want to talk about. And it's how to get famous in 5 minutes. And you feel what I'm saying, right? We call it the Zuckerberg syndrome, right? Where, you know, you want to kind of go from 0 to 2,000 in 2 minutes, right? And we always, you know, we're in the practice where we always want to pull it back and ask them, well, what is it that you think you're here to do? Before we build the world-class website, you know, we get you 1 million Twitter followers, right? What you here to do in the world? And how do people begin to listen for that voice? And what are the ways in which they know that that voice is speaking?
I think before you even ask, what do I need to do? The question that informs that is, what do I want? Not what does my husband want, or my wife, or my family, or the society, but what do I want? And I think that's a question. And you know if the answer is coming from your ego and your soul, if it's preachy, if the word should is used, if there's fear and anxiety and desperation around it, ego. If it's calm, if it's quiet, if it is not pushy but accepting, it's soul. And the soul, I believe the soul is our connection to the divine, whatever that greater source, that higher intelligence is. And I believe if we can get those quiet patches of stillness in the busy quilt of our life, and we learn to listen to that, and what happens, what I've learned is when I get anxiety and when I get fear, which I do quite often, instead of resisting it or trying to push it away, I actually close my eyes and go deeper into it. I make it bigger, and I make it bigger, and I go into that anxiety and into that fear. And two things happen. It will either disappear, and or it will tell you what it wants you to hear. Because usually that in that anxiety is an important message.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you say go in, right? Because often what happens is we feel the feeling, we stop. Like there's almost a way that we get completely paralyzed, right? Or we get confused, right? We sort of have these patterns, these ways of responding to our fear that don't ever enable us to get through it or to the other side, or don't ever enable us to develop a healthy, authentic relationship, right?
Right. See, when you try to avoid the fear, you tend to go into addiction. And they could be, I mean, our drug of choice could be anything from worry to busyness to spending to anything that diverts us and keeps us from really tuning in. Because on the other side of fear is our power. On the other side of fear is our purpose. And one of my goals in my new work, Sacred Success, is to get people to, oh, you know, it's getting darker here. Is that better?
Thank you.
It's getting people to really take time out. We're all about leaning in. But I want to help people lean out, because it's the dance of leaning in and leaning out that helps us discover why we're here and what we're here to do.
Sacred Success, you know, I remember when you came and spent time with us in New York in March, and, you know, and just rocked our house. And that day, I know you remember as well, you were there, and, you know, you talked about greatness, right? Because what's on, we said that what's on the other side is your purpose. I'm like, yes. And when we surrender to our purpose, I feel like that's really where we open the door for the possibility of greatness. And so I would love for you to talk more about that.
I define greatness, paraphrasing a quote by Fred Buchner. And greatness is that place where your deep gladness, what you were put on this planet to do, meets the world's great hunger. And when those two coincide, doing what you love with pain, someone else's pain, that's when we find greatness. It is at that intersection that we find greatness. And here's why I think the conversation of money is so important. Because you can't possibly pursue your purpose. You can't possibly go for greatness with everything you've got if you're drowning in debt, if you're struggling to make ends meet. As Michael Beckwith said, how can you be the light of the world if you can't pay your light bills?
And it's interesting, Barbara, too, because, we've got people who are all over the money map. And yet there is, no matter where it seems like folks are standing, there's this challenge around money. And money is an issue for us, whether we have it or we don't have it. You hear me, are we trying to get it or we're trying to give it away? It's an issue.
Yep.
Why is that? Why is that? Why is it so pervasive?
Because I think problems with money have nothing or very little to do with money per se. It has everything to do with our fear of or ambivalence around power. I think there's many thresholds you can cross to get through your power. There's working on relationships, working on your health, working on your business. And I found working with your finances is a very profound way to get in touch with your power. Because money does not give us power. It is who we have to become financially responsible, financially successful, that empowers us personally.
So profound, because, inside of that conversation, what I hear is accountable, responsible, right? We, as particularly in this culture, we have an adolescent style culture, which is, we never take the blame. You know what I'm saying? We're always pointing the finger, and we've been conditioned.
Instant gratification.
Right. We've been conditioned to point outside. We've been conditioned to be victimized by our circumstances, right? And so there's this real unraveling that needs to happen in order to step into our power and take accountability for our power. And I love what you said. You said our ambivalence, our fear, there's something unresolved for us around being in our power.
Being in our power means we become the ultimate authority in our lives. We become responsible adults. We take up space. We play big. And all the while honoring who we are. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And so what does it take to give ourselves that kind of permission? What does it take?
You know what it takes? There's probably a lot of different variables on this, but the one that I think is the most important is the willingness to do what you fear. The willingness to do what you don't think you can do. I've interviewed a lot of successful people for my books, a lot of successful women. And I knew they'd be confident, and they were very confident. But as we get deeper into the interviews, every single one talked about how she struggled with fear. She struggled with self-doubt, how often they felt like a fraud, were afraid others would find out. But the key was they didn't let it stop them. They felt the fear, they felt the doubt, they felt like a fraud, and they did it anyway. And this is how they built their confidence. This is how they found their power. And so that even if they didn't succeed right away, they got back up and kept going. It is that audacity combined with resilience is how we step into our power.
Yeah, and that willingness to be uncomfortable. The minute it gets testy or uncertain, or the minute it gets, you know what I'm saying? Like it comes up and we just seize up, and I do think and this is a conversation we have a lot around this idea of success and what differentiates people who are successful from people who are not as successful as they would like to be, right? And it is this idea of our willingness to really be uncomfortable, which means we're walking new ground, the willingness to be in that new terrain. And again, so much of the conditioning, right, the ego, right, snatching us back. The minute we step, snatching us back, right? So
the ego's like an electric fence. No matter how painful it is, it wants to keep us in our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it will punish us if we go out. But success in everything, I don't care if it's making more money, losing more weight, it's always found just outside our comfort zone. So I know I scare myself all the time. And every time I go to do something that scares me, I go, oh goody. That means I'm going to the next level.
Yeah. And that's it. How do we welcome the fear, and how do we see it as a natural part of growth? And again, we have these conversations all the time, and people are like, oh, my stuff is up. I have this big premiere coming, and all my stuff is up. I was like, yeah, because you're growing. You're going to the next level. And I do think that in the practice of being willing to face ourselves and face what we fear, if we're able to build that muscle, then it does get to a place where you're kind of like, oh, okay, I see this coming. Oh, I know what this is. Right? I know what this is. You're able to slow it down enough to really see, like, oh, okay, this is my pattern. And then you get to choose, am I going to indulge it, or am I going to venture forth in what it is that I say that I want? Am I going to do that thing that I know is uncomfortable, that's calling me, right? This piece around.
And I think here's what makes the difference. It's like your academy. It is, no one will do it for us, but we don't have to do it alone. Yeah. And I think what empowers us personally is finding support from people who are cheering us on, who are role models, who are our way showers, who show us the way. And that's what's so beautiful about your group.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, for us, it's like the opportunity to engage this wisdom in a communal context, right? Because there's something about being shoulder to shoulder with people who are on the journey with you. And I'm saying that out there because we get tons of questions about community, right, Dana? This theme of community comes up over and over and over again. And there is something about when you step in to make your highest contribution, when you cross that threshold, and you're willing to face that fear, to begin to face that fear, it's really important to notice who is to your right and who is to your left, right? Who are you sharing your deepest dreams and aspirations with and your greatest fears with? Really, really important to look at that, right?
Yeah, so I'm looking through a lot of these questions, and a lot of them, a lot of them are about this.
Yeah, I want to open it up a little bit. Barbara and I will come back, and I've got some more questions for Barbara, but I want to open it up because I know we've got a lot of questions. And I want to give us some room and opportunity to engage in the larger community, engage with the larger community.
Right. I mean, first of all, I want to say for everyone who's watching right now and, who may be tuning in later, we just received so many juicy, rich questions, and they're just, some of them are so, so big and heartfelt, around risk and failure and support and, living your dream and finding your dream. And some of them are really specific about how to like balance my budget as I'm growing my business. I mean, it's just really beautiful. So I just want to thank everyone for submitting questions and really digging in. And we'll do our best to get to as many, but I also want to say that having read through all of the questions that were submitted, I know that there were probably a few that were definitely answered or touched on already in the conversation that Rha and Barbara have been having, and just know that there are a lot of common threads. So if we don't necessarily read your question, go ahead and just keep listening and watching and rewatching. I rewatch these tips of the month all the time, just to get what you need, because I have a feeling we'll provide.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, I'm going to go to some of our Academy members first. We've got some really great questions, and the one that I'm really loving is from, and I think I'll keep most of these anonymous, because we didn't have a little checkbox asking for explicit disclosure of saying your name on the video. So this one is from C, and they write, can you talk about the balance of doing good and earning well? What tips do you have for us to create the perfect balance in our own endeavors? Also, what do you do if you ever get discouraged, even temporarily? So just any tips for getting your positive mental attitude back?
So Barbara, I love it. So this balance between how do we do good and do well, and then this idea of how do we stay in the game when we get discouraged.
I don't see a conflict between doing well and being paid. That's never been a conflict for me, but I know people have that conflict. And I tell people, if you feel guilty about making money, just make it and give it away. Because our being poor does not serve anyone.
Mm.
And I believe that being financially successful and financially responsible is not just a practical process, but a spiritual journey. And I believe living in abundance allows us to help others live in abundance, for whatever that means. Mm. And I even said in my book, there was one line I kept taking out and putting back in, taking out and putting back in, because I was scared to say it. Mm. And it was, I believe that money is God made visible. So whether you believe in God or a higher power, money gives us the ability and the resources to make a difference in this planet, to change the world. Mother Teresa said, it takes a checkbook to change the world. Mm-hmm. Nobody was a better fundraiser than her.
Mm-hmm. Ashe.
So I have, I don't see, and I know people have this conflict, but it's just not a part of my vocabulary. And I would love to see everybody see the beauty and the value. I think money, if you respect and appreciate it by taking care of it, it will serve you and support you for the rest of your life and allow you to do what you're here to do. As for getting discouraged, I get discouraged all the time. Mm. All the time. And that's where I think others come in. Mm. I mean, I have my spiritual practice, which really helps me. Mm. I go back and I meditate and close my eyes and try to connect with that which is larger than me. Mm. I mean, there's nothing like my friends. There's nothing like my friends and my children and my husband. Mm. So I think it's really important. What happens is sometimes when we're discouraged, we tend to go into isolation, which used to be my tendency, and I have learned that is not good. That's the time to reach out.
Yeah, and I think, there's so much pressure to not appear vulnerable, even with those we love and those who we know love us. We still feel, right, the conditioning, we still feel like we need to put a face on it. And I just want to underscore what Barbara's saying is that, that is really the time where you do want to be loved and embraced and contributed to. And I think that that's part of receiving, right? So even in this idea, right, that your do good and your do well have to be in conflict with each other challenges our ability to hold both ends. Somehow we feel like there's a scarcity of having there, right? Like we can't have both. We can't receive both, right?
If our having more will never cause someone else to have less.
Yeah.
Our having more and what we do with that can help enhance other people's lives greatly.
So this is a beautiful point. I mean, I'm sort of looking through all these questions here, and there's so many threads of what you all are just naturally talking about. I'm like, oh, that question is answered. This one is over here. But I mean, there's obviously so much. There's so many layers to peel back. At Move the Crowd, right? And just for folks who may have missed the top. Where I introduced Move the Crowd, and we're an entrepreneurial training company for conscious entrepreneurs, and our main offering is a year-long academy where we really go deep. We call it inside out transformation. So we do deep mindset work as well as then the move into the triple bottom line biz dev work. So a lot of the folks that are asking questions here tonight and that I'm reading through are asking about their businesses. And so there's a couple interesting questions and what got me sparked for this particular question, listening to what you all were just saying, is something I think we hear a lot about on our end, right, working with entrepreneurs every day, which is, finding, this comes from she says, I run a yoga studio and wellness center. I find that many female peers who are natural healers or facilitators of spiritual information have this deep-seated block around money, more specifically around deserving to be paid for their time and energy. So as a side note, there's a lot here in these questions around deserving. As a caregiver, they feel charging for their care is wrong. Yet as a business, I find that belief is what blocks one from becoming abundant, successful. So how to address this and sort of in that specific frame of building a business and building, a social good or a healing-based business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what I know of Move the Crowd is you address this issue. You definitely do. And I think that I know from all the research I've done, there is a definite correlation between your self-worth and your income. And so owning our value. That quote you read at the beginning, and if you didn't hear it, I think everybody should listen to the beginning, because Rha said a quote that was so magnificent that basically said, nobody on this planet can do what you're supposed to do like you. Nobody. And it's like, that's why we're here.
Yeah. The other thing is that, we want a better world. Like, we talk a lot about this amongst ourselves and each other, right? And we can even argue that in the broader mainstream conversation, at least people are paying lip service to this idea of a better world. Well, in a better world, what will we value? And isn't it a great opportunity, right, to practice investing in what we value now, right?
And the best way to start valuing yourself, and I'm telling you this from experience, it's what we talked about earlier. The best way to get in touch with your value, with what you bring to the table, is to do things you're scared to do. There's no better way to earn self-respect than to do what you think you can't do, and even if you fall down, you get back up. That is how we learn the stuff we're made of. Mm-hmm. That's how you learn, wait, the jig is up, as you said earlier. The jig is up. I have a lot to offer. I'm like pretty incredible. I can do this.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. And just with each other, you all, because I also want to say we're doing business with each other. So we talk about how we want to transform this culture of capitalism all the time. And we talk about the fact that we're doing and working in these healing modalities, right, and working in these transformational modalities because we want to make a difference. Well, we also get to support each other in the difference we want to make, right? So if I'm coming to take your yoga class, it should be my honor and my privilege to pay you. You hear what I'm saying? Because I want to come back and be able to take your yoga class because it was so phenomenal, right? So there's something about how we honor each other, right, in this conversation and how we create the space to talk to one another about that value.
It's the exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Money is just a means of exchange. That's all it is. And I know many people have called it energy. It's just exchanging the energy, but it's really important because a woman I interviewed who her business made millions, and she said, my millions are a reflection of my value. Mm. And I would always ask successful women, do you do what you do for the money? 99% of them say, no, I do not do anything for the money. I do it for the passion. I do it for the recognition. I do it for the challenge. But at the same time, and this was what changed it for me. At the same time, they all say, but I want to be well compensated because I know I'm worth it. And it's more than the money. It's the energy behind it. It's the vibration of that thought. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Dana, I want to turn back and see if there's another.
Sorry, you know I'm like trying to. I'm like tweeting. I'm like, oh, this is
the crazy right now. I know that's right. The tweetables are crazy right now.
I know, y'all. Besides just getting my tweet on over here is like, just thank you for this conversation. I'm getting that. That feeling you get when someone's saying something that you really need to hear, and it sort of makes you feel like you're going to throw up, but in a great way. You're like, oh, right, that. Oh. So I can't imagine that I'm the only one who is feeling that energy being generated when you hear the truth. So another, I know we've been talking about this, but I'm just hearing it. Well, let me see if this particular question, it's a bit specific, but there's something in it that I feel really compelled to share. So this comes, and I think I hear threads of it through other questions. So this one comes from N. Recently, I risked everything and lost what I had left, my finances, home, etc., to pursue a lifelong dream at 40 plus. I feel paralyzed with shame, fear, and self-doubt. Rebuilding my finances after losing what took years to establish feels impossible at my age, especially when I can't find the motivation to get out of bed some days. And dreaming has become a luxury I cannot afford. How can I learn to trust in life and myself again when I feel like such a colossal failure?
I relate to that question so much because I was in my 40s when I got divorced from my first husband, who was a compulsive gambler, lost all my money, and after our divorce I got tax bills for $1 million that I didn't have. I couldn't pay. My husband had left the country and my father wouldn't lend me the money. And I swear, if I didn't have 3 daughters, I don't know if I would have stayed around. But I can tell you what happened to me. I knew I had to pick myself up, dust myself off, and get it together. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I really didn't. But I believe when you make a decision, a committed decision, that you are going to live and that you are going to thrive, and that you are going to do what you're here to do, the universe revolves to help you reach your goal. So what happened for me is I had an affirmation. And my first tax bill was $500,000. And my girlfriend gave me this affirmation while we were walking one day when I was crying because I had 3 daughters and no money. And she said to me, this is your affirmation. This $500,000 is making me millions. This $500,000 is making me millions. And I didn't know. I didn't know I was going to do it, but the universe did revolve. It did. And it has made me millions. Absolutely. And you can too. What I learned from that experience is the reason you and I are here talking. It's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. It's the reason I have been able to help so many, many women. So there was a line in my first book that my editor thought was crazy. It was corny. So I took it out, but I put it in this Sacred Success book. And it was that in our deepest pain lies our highest purpose. You can recover from this. You absolutely can. And then you will go on and you will help other people who have been through something similar.
Absolutely right. We teach from our testimony. That is profound teaching that we have to offer, right? Because we're in the conversation of purpose, y'all. We're in the conversation of do good. So whoever that is, you are being invited now to teach from your testimony.
You are being invited to teach, but first you must heal.
Yep.
Absolutely. Your job. And anybody who's listening who has maybe a minor crisis or a minor discomfort going on, it's an opportunity to heal, and that is your job. That became my job, to heal. And you do whatever it takes. You get a part-time job. You get you go to Starbucks, and there's nothing wrong with working at Starbucks, but you just get whatever you can, and you focus on healing so that you can go out and heal others in whatever way that means.
I want to underscore that your number one job is to heal. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that you can love. Right? So that you can love.
There are no accidents. There's no accident that I had a gambling husband. There's no accident you risked everything and lost. There is no accident that we all have been through the trials and tribulations we have. We can either use them to defeat us, or we can use them to make us stronger and to go out and heal others.
Yeah. So this opportunity to see the bigger design. I want to delve into that a little bit, and then I promise I'm coming back to the questions, but I want to delve into this, right? Because things happen to us, Barbara, right? If anybody, raise your hand out there if you hear me. Things happen, right? What had happened was, shit happens, right? There's all these ways that we have to talk about, right? Those things that go awry for us. But there is something about how do we see the bigger design, particularly when we're committed to making a contribution, or particularly when we feel or we know that there is a calling. How do we raise above? How do we get transcendent enough to see the bigger design?
I believe, let me preface it like this. Sacred Success started out to be, it didn't become, but it started out to be a book about making millions. I decided I wanted to make millions, help millions, and give millions. And I thought the way I'm going to do that is interview women who make millions. And what I found in their story was very extraordinary, and it changed my life dramatically. Right before they soared, they sank into a period of nothing happening, or a kind of a limbo. And it was usually precipitated by a crisis, a bad crisis or a soft crisis. But there was something that shook them, that shook their world. And what I realized, these crises, what we interpret as, oh God, this is horrible, are really calls to greatness. It is the universe calling us and saying, stop what you're doing. Pay attention. It's time to play a bigger game. And that last question was from someone who is being called, screaming. The universe is screaming to her, stop. Time to play a bigger game. And to all of us, we are being called in some way, somehow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to underscore that. And I really want to ask you all of you who are listening tonight, to really look at, where are you being called? Where are you being called? How are you being called? Right? Through struggle, through triumph, how are you being called? And what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? So Dana, I'm going to turn back to you to give some space for some more questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. I mean, there's so many good ones. You know, I'm trying to like take a little bit more, some of the themes. Let's get a little bit, I'm going to take a practical, what I'm categorizing as more practical questions, right? We've got a couple coming in that are, let's see, let's take this question from Elle, also a member of the Academy. So I'm a few years into my business, and I've noticed that sometimes making financial investments that stretch me, motivate me to work harder at building my base or take that next step in launching a program that I've been wanting to offer. So how do you balance making financial investments that motivate and budgeting to spend then within your earnings? Do you think it's ever a good idea to spend outside of your budget? A related question, what are useful questions and structures to consider when making a budget for an evolving and growing social change business?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. I think what happens is that what really gets us in trouble, and we see it all the time, is when people put all their money in their own company, whether they're working for another or their own business. And this is very dangerous. It's very important that when you invest in your business, that you have a strong cash cushion, that you have some investments that will protect your future, and that you moderately, strategically invest in your business. And I think that really poignant question we heard before of someone who risked it all and failed. Unfortunately, that's a story that's commonly being told among entrepreneurs because we feel risking everything. But that is not wise. That is not wise. It's really important to protect yourself financially.
Yeah, I want to continue to build on this, Barbara, and break this open a little bit. That, you know, there's a way that the entrepreneurial journey is romanticized to encourage people to live on the edge. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Right, like, you know, you put the S on your chest and you throw the cape over your back, and you're not a real entrepreneur if you are not risking it all and biting your nails. And I just want to affirm what Barbara is saying, like, no. You know, we, in the context of our work, I can't tell you how many transition plans we help people develop, right, so that you give yourself some running room to build. You know, a lot of people come to us and they're mad at their day job, right? And so we say, we want to give you permission to not be mad at your day job, because your day job is funding your ability to even think about, right, whatever this new venture is. And we see it all the time as well, where people put so much pressure on the new thing. You have to go from ideation to millions, right, to profitability in 5 minutes or less, and that is pressure. That is pressure on you. That is pressure on your family. That is pressure on your finances. You know what I'm saying? That's just pressure. That's pressure on your, you know, all the way down the line. Pressure on your coach if you're working with a business coach, because they're a lousy coach then if they don't get you to $1 million in 3 months, right? Who wants to sign up for that job, right? So, we pull people off the ledge all of the time around this conversation, and it's so important that the business, Chris Carr, beloved Chris Carr, said, what's the hurry? I love that, like that question, what's the hurry? You can build it in good stead. You can build it in good time. The key is to take consistent actions that move you forward, right? But you're honoring a plan and you're honoring a strategy that is on your edge, not over your edge, not behind your edge, right? But on your edge, right? So when you're making those decisions in your business, right? Because I'm going to answer the second part of this question. When you're making decisions about investment in your business, the first thing you want to look at is your cash flow. You want to make real certain that you've got enough to cover your basic business. And I'm going to say to you as a goal that you have, your first goal is 3 months in the bank. That I can operate, God forbid, I don't get another client, I don't get another customer, right? I've got 3 months of reserve in the bank, and I'm working towards that consistently as a goal. And then once I've got my baseline covered, then I can begin to look at what are the kinds of investments that make sense for me in my business, right? And also when I'm looking at where I'm investing, what's the timeline on my return on investment, right? Some things we invest in will turn around profit or revenue quickly for us. Other things that we invest in take longer time, right? And interestingly enough, Barbara, you'll tell me if I'm right here, but usually the bigger the investment, the longer it takes, which is why I'm going to say to you, you want to chunk it down.
Yes.
You want to break it down. You do it in installments. You create payment plans and strategies that allow you to make those larger investments over time so that you're reaping the wisdom and the benefit that strengthens your ability to maximize on that investment while you're paying it off, right? So that's a basic rubric. And again, of course, if you want more, you know where to find us, but that's a basic rubric. You always make sure your baseline is covered with a little, like you need to give some cushion in there. We say baseline covered, 20%, 30%. There is a threshold that you always want to make sure that you stay above, right, in the context of your operating finances. You always stay above that. And then when you're looking at your surplus and you're thinking about investments, you're then thinking about it in relationship to time. You're thinking about it in relationship to return and the timeline on return. And you're thinking about the larger investments and how can I break this out over time so I can reap the benefit and maximize on my ability to receive and gain return while I'm still paying that thing off.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, I was just imagining like writing all of it down. Luckily, I get to talk to Rha all the time, so I don't have to write all of that down. But I was like, I could hear the little pencils out there scratching, little fingers typing. So, that's all of this is just a taste of the work that we do, of the work obviously that Barbara does, and Barbara is one of our gurus right here at Move the Crowd, and this, I'm going to give you all sort of a minute here to, I'll give you more than just a minute. I'm not going to stop the broadcast in 30 seconds, but to sort of just, any last things that you want to say. But I really just want folks to know who have been watching, and I've been watching the numbers sort of like fluctuate and lots of viewers, and then it dwindles and comes back, right? So we know people are tuning in, tuning out, tending to their lives. But that this is just a taste of the kind of work that we do here at Move the Crowd, right? This is that inside-out transformation. These are the conversations around mindset, the conversations around fear, around blocks, around support system, right? Like what's in your way of having what you most want. And I think, what you were saying, Rha, about the, and Barbara, about some of these like myths of the entrepreneurs, right? That it's all about the doing, the going, and that we spend a lot of our lives at this like really rapid pace of the doing and the accomplishing and the, and maybe these unhealthy relationships to ambition and just getting it all and having it all at once. And there's something about the slowdown and really recognizing how we're being and how that's allowing us to have what we want or not have what we want. So,
Barbara, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the book, how people can get the book, what can people expect if they engage the book and take the book on.
You can get the book anywhere. It's on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. This book took me a long time to write because I was scared to write it. This is because what I do is I merge. It's a whole new body of work that I call metaphysical, not metaphysical, metaphysical. It really brings the conversation of the divine and the spiritual into our relationship about money. And I think when you can do that, when you can bring the divine, when you can bring the spiritual and the practical together, financial success becomes a healing journey, a transformational process, a rite of passage into our power. So, and it's all about greatness. That is what it's about. It's about it's about transforming money so that it becomes a tool for transformation and not a source of stress and distraction.
Ashe, ashe. So I want you all to know that Barbara and I are just beginning this conversation with you. And, you know, every year we take on new themes, just like every month as a community of practice, as an entrepreneurial community practice, we at Move the Crowd take on a monthly theme, and we're in the context, boy, are we in the belly of do good already, girlfriend. It's November 4th, and we are here, honey, in the belly. And what I want you to know is that next year we are excitedly going to be announcing a new course that is rooted in healing and transforming whatever is in the way of you and your money and you and your ability to use your money as a tool for transformation, right? And so to that end, we want you to know that next year is going to be all about courage and currency.
Ooh, I love that.
Right? Courage and currency. And within that conversation, we are going to be taking you all on a journey called Show Me the Money, Honey. And so you want to stay tuned for that. Dana is your girl on that. She's going to keep you abreast on that and keep your ear to the ground on that. But we are so thrilled to be collaborating with Barbara. We are so thrilled to continue to build on this incredible legacy of her work, overcoming under-earning and now sacred success, this new wave, this new body of metaphysical transformation. And we are bringing revenue generation into this conversation in a way like never before. We are going to show you step by step how to monetize your dreams, so how to heal what is ever in the way of you and your money, and then how to work with money in a way that incorporates and enables it to multiply for you rapidly. So that is the name of the game. So we want to encourage you to stay tuned. We want to encourage you to re-listen to this particular tip if you got value, to really take some time after we're done tonight to write about what your takeaways, what your key takeaways were as a result of the time tonight. Where are you being called? What are you going to do about it? And what needs to happen around your money to support your ability to be all that you're here to be in the world. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Barbara. We love you. We honor you. You all get the book. We got the book. We're going to be talking about the book for the next at least 3 or 4 months. You want to join us in that conversation, so go get it. And Dana, as always, thank you for holding it down and keeping us on point and on task in the work. And you all, we're here to support you. So if you know that you need support and you want support and you're ready to step in and really align around your vision and your purpose, then, you know, holler at us. We'd be more than honored to serve you.
Yeah, so everyone can find us at movethecrowd.me, and so at the top of 2015 is when I believe we'll start our, we'll be putting out our pre-registration for the Show Me the Money offering with Rha and Barbara. So you can just go to our site, movethecrowd.me, and join our email list, and you'll get all the updates. And we're closing our registration for our academy. These are the last throws, the last days. Right? So our academy, you can read more about it at movethecrowd.me. You can go to movethecrowd.me/academy. Either way, if you go to our site, you'll find it, and you can schedule your free strategic consultation with one of our coaches. Right? So this is like 45 minutes really of brilliant coaches and their best thinking inside of your business and inside of your life. Right? So this is our offer. This is our way of connecting and really seeing if our vision and our work can support your vision. Mm-hmm. So we do this every month.
For more on Barbara, BarbaraStanny.com. BarbaraStanny.com, and sacred success to you all. Mm-hmm. Love yourself and treat yourself to this sacred work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And folks, tune in to the site and tune into the blog, and this will be posted probably in the next day or so. Mm. Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you all.